What's the good word, y'all? DKB here. So we had an NFL insider, Peter King, that was on the Rich Eisen show talking about the New York Jets quarterback situation. And if we've been paying attention to the latest news and rumors, the New York Jets seem like they prefer their quarterback one to target this offseason to be Aaron Rodgers. Now, Peter King was saying that if we somehow miss out on Aaron Rodgers, then he can see the New York Jets looking to target Lamar Jackson. And I found this extremely interesting. Now, I haven't been the highest on Lamar Jackson, and I'll point out some things that have kind of changed my mind a little bit as I've been digging a little bit deeper on kind of what's been happening over there. But the big news is that Lamar Jackson could essentially become the number 2 target, which sounds pretty weird in the grand scheme of things, but he could sneakily jump ahead of Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Ryan Tannehill, and I find that an interesting conversation to dive into. So let's talk about some of the particulars with this situation. So this all happened within the span of, the last 24 or 48 hours. In this same time frame, the Baltimore Ravens, there were rumors that they aren't as hard, fast on the fact that Lamar Jackson will definitely be their 2023 starting quarterback. And the rumor essentially says that if the right trade package comes along, and this is pretty much the case with any player in the league, minus maybe Patrick Mahomes, who seems to be the only untouchable, they are willing to potentially part ways. Now, I've seen a variety of different trade packages that were mentioned, but it seems like just to get your foot in the door and to have some kind of realistic conversation is going to take at least 2 first-round picks, this year definitely being included, in order for them to successfully try to transition and rebuild an offense around a new quarterback. Now, there's a few reasons why we may miss out on Aaron Rodgers to start with, and then we'll move fully into Lamar Jackson. Now, Aaron Rodgers is on his retreat. He could come back. The most realistic options are that he determines he wants to move into the next chapter of his life. He is going to retire as a Green Bay Packer, and that's going to be the end of this whole saga about continuing, retiring, etc. Secondly, the Raiders have been the biggest contender, it seems like, so far in terms of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. So there's a lot to love about the Las Vegas Raiders situation. For Derek Carr, he has Josh McDaniels, who he's wanted as an offensive coordinator, that originally caused a lot of these issues with the Packers when he felt like his opinion went unheard. Las Vegas has tax-free breaks. There's plenty to do between downtown, the Strip, all the different events that tend to pop up and be a main point of Las Vegas. Obviously, the gambling and stuff, if he tends to be into that as well. Tax breaks. He has his best friend in Devontae Adams on the team. There's a lot to like. And so potentially the Raiders can beat us out on a deal. And it's a simple fact is either he liked it more or they offered a much better trade package than we would have. And then the final one would be maybe he just comes to the realization New York isn't it. Maybe the market and the media and the fan base, as rabid as we are, just is too much for him and where he's at in his point in career and what he wants to deal with. Or he just outright says, I'm not feeling New York and the coaching staff and kind of this whole somewhat rebuilding situation, although he would be the cure-all for that. Now, jumping into Lamar Jackson, his situation is interesting because it looks like the contract talks are stalling once again. And from what I checked in on, it seems like the Ravens have been offering him, and we don't have hard, fast details on this, but they've offered him a contract that would put him at the top of his position in quite a few different metrics based on his performance, and from what we know, he's turned it down. He did the same thing last offseason. Now, March 7th is the date to know, and that's because that's when they will have to franchise tag Lamar Jackson, and there's 2 branching scenarios that'll happen depending on what they do. If they apply the non-exclusive franchise tag, this means that Lamar Jackson can go out. He can continue to have contract talks with other teams. And if he's able to go out there and acquire the contract, which we'll talk about, he essentially is looking for, then the Baltimore Ravens, ball goes to their court. They have to determine, do they want to match the offer, one they couldn't come up with on their own. Maybe it made sense with how another team drafted it up. They can match it, end of story. Or they can choose, based on what I mentioned earlier, the 2 first-round draft picks or whatever the trade compensation ends up looking like in order to give Lamar Jackson's new contract to the new team. Or if they exclusively franchise tag him, then we have a little bit more of an understanding that Baltimore doesn't plan on letting him see daylight with any other team because he won't be allowed to have any of those conversations. There is an interesting trade scenario I've seen and some things we need to consider. For one, would the Ravens want to trade Lamar Jackson to another team in the AFC? It's already a conference that's run through Patrick Mahomes, and on the right team, Lamar Jackson could become the new gatekeeper, or the understanding in the new AFC would be that you either have to beat Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in order to make it to the AFC Championship game and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, and that is already tough enough. Just think about Mahomes looming season in and season out. The Ravens just might not want to deal with that. The second situation, which kind of feeds off of that, is the fact that I've heard if they would make a trade, it would go with the NFC, and the Falcons is an interesting enough team. The trade compensation I've seen was that the Falcons would give the young upstart Desmond Ridder and a package of 4 picks. So from what I would imagine, Desmond Ridder a first this year, a first next year, and then some combination of rounds 2 through 3 and 2 of those picks. So let's just say 2 first, a second, and a third in like 2024 or something like that, as well as Desmond Ridder to get it done. And they would start the rebuild around him. And I think that would be fair enough, which means if we aren't offering a player that they feel like can be a core component of their team, we're looking at least a solid 4 to 6 picks, and maybe the Russell Wilson trade is the closest thing that we'll have to, comparing what a trade for Lamar Jackson could look like. And, it hasn't worked out for Russell Wilson, but still, quarterbacks are everything. I think it would be worth the gamble and worth the risk to sacrifice those picks if it is a Lamar Jackson, because his age and what he will bring is a game changer. Now, in regards to what I mentioned before about Lamar Jackson, because we talked about it on the Jets flight squad, I was always against having to go out there and blow picks for him, or I shouldn't say it in that light, but use our draft capital to trade for him, because I felt like he struggled with connecting with his wide receivers and, attacking an offense outside of the numbers, or a defense outside of the numbers anyways. That may not necessarily be the case. And when I look at things from a macro level and big picture and what he's done in the NFL, I become instantly sold. I mean, I had to keep in mind we're talking about the 2019 NFL MVP. He's broken in a very quick manner pretty much every rushing record for a quarterback, and he's up there in territory with most running backs in the NFL. And when it comes to his passing ability, which is a big concern for me, I have to keep in mind that he's led the league in passing touchdowns already in his young career at one point. So he can get it done. It's just been a matter that maybe Greg Roman wasn't able to build a sufficient offense around his wide receiver rooms and what Lamar Jackson is doing. Jumping into the contract. Now, there's a little bit of gasoline on the fire because his best friend in the offense, tight end Mark Andrews, was recently discussing the contract situation, and he believes that Lamar Jackson should be making even more money than Aaron Rodgers. So when we look at some of the top quarterback contracts in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, he's making $46 million, but he also has that monster 10-year contract, which is structured in a very particular way. Aaron Rodgers is making, I think, just shy of $51 million a year, and then Deshaun Watson is making $45-ish million a year. Now, the baseline from what I understand is that Lamar Jackson wants to reach that Deshaun Watson territory. I'm not sure if he wants to eclipse it or not, but it seems like he's hard set on the fact that he wants a fully guaranteed contract, which is why people in the Baltimore Ravens organization may be stumped, because from what we've heard, they've offered contracts within that range in value, maybe even a little bit more. It's just not fully guaranteed, and it's not something they've done, and it's not something really the league is used to. Kirk Cousins broke the mold. Deshaun Watson was able to capitalize on that as well. Lamar Jackson's looking to be the next person that can trade in for that type of security. Now, I would say fully securing a contract with them is a little bit risky. We've seen the leg injury. Seems like it could be an ongoing thing, but maybe he was slow pacing it to not really negatively hurt his contract talks. But There is availability, durability concerns. We'd have to throw him in the Jimmy Garoppolo bucket, but he is a transcendent talent. I mean, with what he brings to an offense, you place him around, and pretty much as creative as your head coach and or offensive coordinator is, you have limitless opportunities. He has the arm strength to hit everything. He sees the field very, very well. He's able to make opportunities out of nothing when pockets are breaking down. He can attack you with his legs. He can beat you with his arm, as we discussed, him leading the league in passing touchdowns. And so he brings a full ensemble, and even then some. He's just kind of a freak of nature at the quarterback position. I would say he's potentially worth a contract like that as long as he can stay on the field, because there's literally limitless things that you can do with them. I haven't seen him necessarily take anybody from, the bottom of a roster or anybody with elite talent that they've drafted and really turn them into an all-star, minus Marquise Hollywood Brown's, 1,000-yard season before he ended up getting traded. So I would have concerns there, but he's very young, and so you can expect continuous improvement there in terms of the passing game production and clicking with his wide receivers. For the Jets specifically, again, it's a very much so, it's a plug-and-play offense, essentially. We just really need to get a line in front of whoever ends up being our quarterback, and he's going to mitigate a lot of those concerns as well. It would just come down to what can we really build up with whatever the trade package will ultimately end up looking like. The only concerns are when it comes to his contract, and this is for the Ravens and any other team that's looking to trade with them, is he's a bit of an outlier. He's one of the players that represents himself, and his mother tends to be his, or not tends to be, but his mother's his manager. He also has a small team of advisors. So they operate very much so in the realm of like Joe Douglas, from what I understand. They have a goal they want to achieve. They know they can get it from somebody. Lamar Jackson's not an issue in the locker room. He's not a cancerous individual that's going to, destroy a locker room chemistry. We've talked about the high-end production he's done. And from all accounts, he's basically a model citizen. His teammates absolutely love him. The treasure is up for grabbing. Who's going to take it? I would say at this point, the New York Jets should abandon ship with Aaron Rodgers and make Lamar Jackson the number one target if we're absolutely going to go out and spend draft capital on a quarterback. I trust in Joe Douglas' scouting talent to be able to do it. It's not like we're losing an entire draft's worth of picks, potentially, asterisk there. But to put into focus, to kind of cap it off, Lamar Jackson, in terms of his production and what he can do for an offense, and this is talking about a heavy reliance on one man in order to make an offense work. When he's been with the Ravens, as long as he's played at least 15 games in the season, he's accounted for 63% of the Ravens' offense. When that man leaves the offense, things are decimated completely. It's still an offense that can be run effectively, but there is a drastic difference between him at the helm and anybody else that's quarterbacking that room. And we've seen it with Brett Hundley, who I actually like and think he's done a sufficient job and could be a sneaky pickup as a backup quarterback mentor kind of guy. But that is the catch as of now. Lamar Jackson could be potentially up for grabs. Peter King feels like the New York Jets could shift lanes really quickly if things with Aaron Rodgers go sour and make Lamar Jackson, the diamond of our eye and what we need to fully achieve. And I am all for it. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Where do you sit with Lamar Jackson? How desperate would you be to get him on board, and what kind of trade package would you offer to secure the deal, knowing it'll take at least 4 picks from what it sounds like, and maybe a capable player thrown in there? But let me know what your guys' thoughts are, and I'll catch you again. Peace.